Hey guys, Renikade here, and in today's episode I'm going to be talking about episodes 362 and 363 of Berserk. The latest two chapters have revealed some very interesting plot points, mostly focused on Skull Knight, and this is what I'm going to talk about today. So, what do we know so far? The last owner of the Berserker armour died wearing it. And thanks to the dwarf showing just one of the armour's memories in chapter 362, we now have confirmation that Skull Knight was the last person to wear the Berserker armour, and that before Guts donned it, it was safely being looked after by Flora, serving as a reminder of her and Skull Knight's friendship. Thanks to chapter 362, we also know that Skull Knight lost his lover during a much older eclipse with an almost completely different god hand. The only exception being Void, who still remained, showing him to be the oldest member of the current god hand. As for Skull Knight, though we don't know for sure whether he forced his way into the eclipse, like he did to save Guts and Casca, or was just simply one of the many to be caught in the sacrifice and branded, we can assume the latter, meaning he and his elven fairy lover were destined for the Vortex of Souls, which, as we know, is a place we don't want to be. We can also determine Skull Knight didn't survive the eclipse, as described in his very own statement. What you bore witness to was the end of a foolish king. Adding to this statement, now that we know for certain Skull Knight was the previous owner and the armour itself claimed the life of its previous owner, this is all we need to confirm Skull Knight / King Geyserek died. This brings us to Flora. The latest chapter, 363, has revealed that Flora was banished for carrying out a great taboo. And I personally think this taboo was death magic. Being a good friend of Skull Knight, I think Flora intervened where she shouldn't have. And so, where Skull Knight died, because he did die, she somehow prevented his soul from being damned for all of eternity and consumed by the Vortex of Souls. And at this point, whatever was left of Skull Knight's body was more than likely destroyed just from the pure stress it would have been under from donning the Berserker armour. With his body ruined, this meant all that was left was his soul, and through the power of magic, most likely death magic, Flora was able to rescue Skull Knight's soul from the abyss and bond it to the armour that he now wears. This would mean Skull Knight is the armour, and I think this is why we never see him out of it. This would have directly opposed the flow of time and the cycle of life and death, and would almost certainly be viewed as an abuse of power, leading to Flora's exile. So, what about Skull Knight's lover and her likeness to Danann? Having caught a glimpse of the flashback herself while pulling Guts back from the armour's grasp, Shirk comments with Guts on how similar Danann looks to Skull Knight's lover, but there's something odd here, because Danann is clearly younger than the woman within the flashback, and their headband accessories are definitely different. If you look at it one way and you observe the two, Danann's accessory is like an adolescent version of Skull Knight's lover's. Skull Knight's lover's is a fully formed butterfly, whereas Danann's is like the bottom part of that same necklace. To me, this implies in a very Mura-esque way that Danann is actually Skull Knight's lover's offspring, who, by the way, is the Cherry Blossom Princess. As a side note, while it is possible for both Danann and the Cherry Blossom Priestess to be the same person, it is highly unlikely. Danann is an elf, whereas the Cherry Blossom Priestess actually looks more human than anything else. As made apparent when comparing Danann's antennae to the Cherry Blossom Priestess, who doesn't seem to have them. And to be fair, if you look at her ears, which is a bit hard to do considering her voluminous hair, it doesn't look like she's got elf ears. This is Cherry Blossom Priestess, not Danann. So Danann is very much a fairy folk. The Cherry Blossom Priestess, although she probably came from Elfhelm, doesn't look it. She looks a lot more human, but the two do look very similar. So, unless the Cherry Blossom Priestess was saved from the Vortex of Souls and reincarnated as an elf, with no memory of her former self, Danann and the Cherry Blossom Priestess are very clearly two separate beings, as made apparent by Danann's reaction to Skull Knight visiting his former lover's gravestone. Now, we know the flow of time is different in Elfhelm, but we don't know what kind of influence it has over those that are born there. I mention this because the likeness between Danann and the Cherry Blossom Priestess is uncanny. Danann is very clearly younger than the Priestess, which leads me to strongly believe that she is the Priestess's daughter, and as such, Skull Knight's. One odd thing about this is that if this is the case, the way Danann addresses Skull Knight implies that she's unaware of having any relation to him. But if this is true, and she is related, and is in fact his daughter, which I believe, it's possible that Skull Knight left her behind on his quest for revenge against those who tore his lover from him, much like how Guts left Casca for 2 years. If this truly is what happened, it's highly likely the denizens of Elfhelm were the ones who raised Danann, and to ensure she received a loving, healthy upbringing, they likely hid the identity of her birth father, Skull Knight, while he was off killing who knows what. Mostly for her own protection. It's also very clear that Skull Knight has grown cold to the warmth of love, for if Danann truly is his daughter, his words, "I have not the heart to bathe in the lambent sea of my mortal days," suggests he has no intention of ending his path of revenge to grow close to Danann by being the father figure he always should have been. Overall, these past 2 chapters have been refreshing and highly insightful, and it's great to finally get a deeper look into Skull Knight's past. How much truth there is to my theory will likely be revealed in the coming chapters, but I honestly believe this to be the direction Miura is taking the story. P.S. Ishidoro, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're an absolute nutcase. And I loved every second of it. If you want more Berserk content, let me know in the comments. I'm sure I'll be covering a lot more in the future, and as more chapters release, I will also be aiming to cover those, specifically the more interesting ones. I also have a collection of Berserk figures, my own painted jacket, which I'll happily show you at some point, and some character sheets for a potential Pathfinder game based on the Berserk world. That said, stay safe, peace out.